And so that kind of fantastical adventure is kind of, everyone yearns for that, but there are only so many ways people can fulfill that now.
And they're drawn to the fantasy. They're drawn, a lot of them, to adventure. Would these be people that are living this out in the gaming world and not maybe so much in real life?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there is a very clear delineation between real life and fantasy generally.
There is? You don't think those get blurred? Because that's what I wondered.
Well, yeah, a lot of the games nowadays they're focusing on realism. That's kind of the phase the gaming industry's in. And so as a result, there are those, for example, Assassin's Creed is saturated in realism. And so... And
describe for me, a non-gamer, what the difference between, because is this a recent development in the gaming world? What's the difference between fantasy and realism? What has been the changes with the game?
Well, hardware development, software development is the major thing. As we have the technology to actually create more realistic looking games, the drive to make them not only look real but actually feel real is part of that. It's called immersion, to make sure that when you're actually playing the game, you are immersed in it. And it's not just those games, even low graphics games, like back in the NES days. You play Zelda, it's immersive. You're Link with a sword saving the world.
But even though you're immersed in these because the graphics are so realistic, you're still playing fantasy characters, or not? Are we getting more into the realm of like, okay, in this game I want to be like a real policeman, or in this game I want to be a real politician? You're still the fantasy characters. You're not really going that real.
Oh, I hope not.
Okay,
but,
that takes away all the fun. Because that's what I wondered, when you said it gets more realistic, you're talking more about the graphics, or just drawing you in with just such... And I've seen that with the, my children who play the video games. I mean, I'm like, are you watching real NFL on TV, or is that a game? And it is. And is that a little bit what you're talking about?
Yeah.
So what is it why do you think there's a stigma towards the fantasy games or people who play them?
Well,
or do you think there even is?
Yeah, I mean, it's not so prevalent now as it was like when I was this tall. But
you've been playing for a while.
Yeah, but the stigma comes from, it's who necessarily gravitates towards these games.
Yes, I want to hear that.
I don't like perpetuating stereotypes, but back when I was a kid, anyone who played those games were the nerds and the losers of the group, and so that stigma stuck for a while. But now that people who make games are making bank, that's kind of shifting towards...
I was going to say, the nerds are the new bosses of today.
Well, yeah, and now they're rubbing it in. It's like,
exactly.
I play this game. What are you going to do about it?
Right. How long have you been playing then? You talked about you started playing when you were a young boy or a young kid. How many years?
I got my first gaming system when I was 8, so and I'm 25 now. So that's...
And then do a lot of people start at that young age, do you think? What's the average age that play these games?
Actually, a recent study said the average age of the gamer is 37.
Is that right?
Yes.
Wow. And tell me another thing that always kind of interests me is, and this was when I first came and met you down at the Arena card shop, that, where are the girls? Where are the girls?
That's actually a very good question. There's several studies been done to try to address this. Actually, Terry Few wrote a book, Games, Technology, Industry, Culture. And he says that there is a gender bias, mainly because the developers themselves are male, so they know what demographic, they know what makes the guys play the games. But at the same time, while there's still that gender bias, there's still a very prevalent role reversal, gender roles. For example, Lara Croft, the Tomb Raider series, is a female that, back when the game came out, being Indiana Jones was reserved for Indiana Jones, for male characters, but she was a archaeologist who explored and eventually saved the world, just like most of the games end up doing. And even beyond that, one of the original games came out for the Nintendo system back in the 80s, was called Metroid. And although they didn't know it at the time, eventually it was revealed that the main character, Samus, was actually a female. And she was the one going around saving the universe. So
now, how did they keep that secret that this character was female?
Back in the 80s, it was all 8-bit and 16-bit graphics.
Okay, so you couldn't even hardly tell.
It was hard to tell, but at the end of one of the games, she took her helmet off. And then it was
I see.
Oh, these awkward feelings I've been feeling have been validated.
So you had some sort of male attraction to her, but.
Well, I like the
okay,
heroines.
Steve, come
anyway.
on, let it out. You're like, I'm having awkward feelings toward this character. But they must have written her to have some feminine characteristics. And then they probably was all part of the greater scheme in that game that they reveal her to be a woman. And
One would hope.
yeah, okay. It's kind of interesting to hear how some of the different things like this happen. What are the numbers? Well, I want to go back to something you mentioned too, or we talked a little bit about men versus women being interested in the game. In my research, there's been some actual studies because of the potential addiction, the addiction potential that some people have, and you've seen that, I'm sure, to these games. And they did actual studies where they hooked up guys, males and females, and the males did have chemical, biological reactions to playing these games that females didn't have. What do you want to say about the possible addiction issue relative to people playing these games?
Well, the addiction is pretty, it's starting to get more prevalent now, where people will play Warcraft for, hours on end, and like they'll start in the morning and they'll have their breakfast, and then when they finally get up to take a break, they realize that it's already 10, 11 o'clock at night, and they're like, oh, where did the day go? I don't want to belittle the study, but it's also, like I was mentioning earlier, it's the games are being developed for guys, primarily, and so if it doesn't interest you, you're going to tune out. So another study that was done by Cambridge University said that as far as gaming goes, and that's a very broad brushstroke, 58% of them are men and 42 are women. But I mean,
that's not that far of a stretch.
I know, but that also includes, casual games like Peggle or Bejeweled. And those games, they are immersive, they're intelligent, they require strategy to perform. But the hardcore gaming community, I guess, frowns upon them. I think that it's a genius idea because that's what's making the money. PopCap Games develops most of these casual games, in addition to all the games that are on Facebook, even something as simple as The Sims. It's pretty phenomenal, and that's what's making the money, and that's what the people in general are buying. Us hardcore gamers actually are becoming smaller and smaller percentage of the population.
Well, and you've addressed something that we're going to have to take a little quick break here, but you've addressed something I definitely want to get back to is the money of gaming. There's a lot to be said about people making big profits off of this, the cost to players, things like that. So we're going to come back with Steve, talk some more about fantasy gaming. And this is Joan with the Joan Jerkovich Show, and I want you to remember that you can see these video outtakes and also podcast in iTunes off of joanjerkovich.com. Okay. Ben, do you want to start this next segment with a question you might have? Or are you good just to...
I'm enjoying listening, but I thought of a couple of things I could have thrown in, like what possesses guys to create girl characters. I actually saw that question on some forum, but yeah, it's like I'd rather watch a girl run around than a guy. Or
well, we're still on video. I love these outtakes. So let's talk about that. What possesses guys to create girls?
There's a lot of cultural theory behind it, but I'm of the opinion that when one is playing a game, they want something pretty to look at. And the graphics are amazing, but then you have this tawdry, stereotypical guy with steroid induced biceps, or you can have their stereotypical version of a female, the tall, slender, long hair,
beautiful body, beautiful physique.
And you can watch that walk around for the next 14 to 20 hours,
and it's role playing, so you can become a woman if you
and you can enjoy it visually, as an attraction to women, but you can also...
Then the interactions between the characters are different when you, say, play Mass Effect as a guy versus play Mass Effect as a girl. The interactions are not necessarily starkly different, but they're subtly different. That way you know, oh, well, how would a girl respond to this?
Now, are those programmed into the software that if you're if you're a female character, you can't like go beat the heck out of a guy or whatever you do. You are still have those feminine differences.
Yeah.
Like, did you play the Fable series?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was a female in both of those. They're 2 and 3, and it's a totally different experience because the third one, the newest one, you are a queen or a princess.
Yeah,
and then,
princess and queen. I actually finished beating Fable 3 last week.
Yeah.
I hadn't got around to playing it yet.
Yeah.
I picked a female character because in Fable 2 I had a female character.
Yeah.
The first Fable I had a guy, but...
So on a broader stroke here, just listening to the two of you talk about this, does this teach you, being a female and seeing the subtle differences, does it teach you anything about women? Does it give you a little sensitivity of what they might be challenged? I will definitely say in the work world, and when you're talking about competitive arena, which is what these games all are, there's some form of competition, women are still second class. I think. Is it harder to win a game as a woman? That's just a general.
No, I would say it's harder to win a game as a woman, but as far as being able to empathize, I think I just got that naturally through my real life interactions. When you play a female character in a, for example, Fable, Peter Molyneux is the head of Lionsgate Studios, or Lionhead Studios. Mm-hmm. It's a very male-centric game. Mm-hmm. So you're seeing how to act like a female as a man would perceive it. So I guess it's playing directly into how I would react.
I think it's more fulfilling to be a female.
Well, I enjoy the game.
Yeah. Why is it more fulfilling to be a female?
Because you're.
Because normally the
realm let me say for the record, these are two heterosexual guys.
The realm, the realm of saving the world has historically. I mean, it's only just recently where there have been heroines that are play a major role. I mean, even as far back as let's throw Musketeers, like Three Musketeers. I mean, Athos, Porthos, Aramis, D'Artagnan. They're male characters, and even in the remakes, like motion pictures, the female leads, although they're strong and I am woman, hear me roar, they're still secondary characters, and we're getting more to the point where those lines are blurred, which I think is a good thing. But
well, even socially, we are. We have presidents and heads of state that are female, Hillary Clinton. When you mention in the old, it wasn't so much women, but my patron saint would be Saint Joan of Arc, one of the very few you can even think of from history.
Without really digging back. I mean,
that's going way back. Well, that's true. But I think that might be a little bit of a slant on the way society. Do you think? Maybe.
Well, yeah. Games, I think, are a direct reflection of society. For example, L.A. Noire is an M-rated game. It takes place in the 1960s, 50s-ish.
And you say M-rated, meaning mature?
For mature content. There's mature content. And so, like, when you see the game, you're automatically, it's immersive to the point where I think they're doing a kind of a commentary on, like, the 50s and 60s. Subtle dialogue, nonverbal communication that they put into the game leads you, it's like, oh, that's how they treated women and minorities back in the 50s and 60s.
Yeah, this is getting sophisticated.
And that's part of the immersion. It's like, well, that's how they treated them, but doesn't mean you necessarily like it. But
yeah.
Well, let's get back to the interview. We're going to do a short 8 minutes, and Ben's going to cue me at about 3, and then again 1. And I want to get back to the topic about money, because this is a big business. We're back, and this is Joan with the Joan Jerkovich Show, 910 KINA, back with Steve. He's actually our college graduate that has a wealth of information to talk to us about the world of online gaming and other types of fantasy games. And one of the things we wanted to get back to was to talk about, I know there's something about like magic cards. You can invest in these, you can trade these, sell these for money. Tell us about that world.
Yeah, magic cards, because it is a game where you have a 60-card deck, and each of those cards are interchangeable for other cards. So your goal is to try to optimize your deck the best you can, because like any game, to make it good, there has to be some kind of random chance, and the random chance is going to be the card you draw. So your goal is to optimize it so the card you draw, odds are, is what you need. As a result, certain cards are more powerful and more valuable than others. For example, when Future Sight came out, which was a long time ago, I was still in college at the time, there was a particular card, it was called Tarmogoyf, and when it first came out, it was this phenomenal card. One of the podcasts about the magic market, they were saying that you could buy a house with a stack of Tarmogoyfs because it was just that valuable.
And this was within the magic card?
That was within the magic community.
Okay.
You could get a mortgage and pay it off with stacks of Tarmogoyfs. Buy a car with 1 or 2. They were hyperbolizing, of course, but even now that